So, beautiful winter's day here in Hokianga. It's the 23rd of June, 2 days after the solstice, and here we are planting shallots. So you can see that we've laid the shallots out on the bed. We're laying them out on about 7-inch spacings, and you can see them going, the spacing, the diagonal lines going along the bed. These are beautiful shallots. We had a fantastic crop last year, really lovely. So this bed has been prepped. The soil's nice and loose. It has had some very well rotted cow's manure that's been through a kind of worm farm. It's had some Sue Johnson compost. It's had calcium and some vermicast. And we're going to we'll plant the shallots, and then we will mulch with ramial wood chip. So yeah, looking good. And when we've finished planting and we've mulched, we will net the bed. So that's the one that we did yesterday. We did this bed yesterday, also of shallots. You can see that it's mulched with ramial wood chip, and it's hooped and netted because we find that otherwise birds come in and dig up the bulbs, which is very annoying, and we have to replant them. So we just routinely net now. So the net, if you're interested, is from Permathene Plastics, and we buy it in long rolls and cut it. It is a kind of plasticky woven thread. It's very hard wearing though. We're really pleased with how well it lasts, and so it's one of those compromises about having plastic in the garden. We buy it in 50-metre or 100-metre rolls and cut it to the length of the various beds that we've got, and it is very good. And the hoops, the end hoop there is one of the metal hoops from Redpaths that comes with an integral clip to hold the net to it, and then in between the intermediate ones, they're made out of old alkathene piping. We had some short lengths of alkathene pipe that we pulled out in short sections, and so we made that into hoops. So John's just started planting, so this, like I said, the soil's quite loose, so it's just making a kind of slit, putting the shallot in so that its end is sticking out, just its little shoot. These aren't sprouted yet. When we were sorting out planting them, we had a bag with, well, this bed has 177 planted in it, and of that 177 we threw one away because it had two away because they'd totally rotted, and there was one in the bag that was sprouting, and that one, we'll eat that one. It was still good enough to eat, but I didn't want to use one that was sprouting because we're also selecting, of course, for ones that store well. So so we don't want to plant ones that are sprouting. So, but most of them weren't. So they're really good, these shallots. They store incredibly well. So these would have been harvested in January, I think. And beginning of January, yeah. And we've got bags of them now, and we've hardly lost any so far. So they're really good. So here we're just doing the final bit before we net and hoop and net the bed, which is to mulch it with ramial wood chip. So this wood chip is a mix of poplar, pussy willow, crack willow and Tasmanian blackwood. Tasmanian blackwood isn't actually deciduous, but we have lots of it, and we've been finding that by putting some in the mix it actually seems good. And it's a bit of an issue about using what we've got. I forgot to say, when we prepped these beds, they've also had charcoal activated with urine and a kind of aerated vermicast tea. So yeah, so they've had lots of goodies on these beds. We find that the ramial wood chip as a mulch has loads of benefits on the allium beds. It protects the soil, it suppresses the weeds, it doesn't bring a weed burden in. We used to use our own hay, but whenever we use our own hay, we were just kind of importing weeds back into the garden all the time from the weed seeds. And the other advantage that we find over hay is that our climate here tends to be that we get very wet winters and very dry springs and summers. It dries up quite quickly in the springtime, and with the very wet conditions, the hay can kind of thatch under the pressure of the water, and then when you get to the springtime, it actually sheds the water rather than letting it through, whereas the wood chip cushions the soil, but it lets the water percolate through better than hay used to. So we're really happy using the wood chip on the alliums. We've been using them for several years now, or been doing the alliums like this for several years now with the ramial wood chip mulch, and it works really well. And in the springtime it kind of rots away, so by the time we get to harvest around, so it'll be January time, by the time we get to harvest there's the remnants of it left, but it's mostly rotted in and added to the fungal matter in the soil.